All right, Marik, we are now live, hopefully on Facebook and Twitter. So thank you very much for being here. Sorry to everybody for being a little bit late, but we're here now. Marik, so I guess like we have kind of quite a long history. Oop, let me just. Oh, yeah, it's popped up in the other window there. Okay, so we have a long history of discussing this. I think you like contacted me like 3 years ago, was it?
Oh man, yeah, it's been a while. Yeah,
Yeah, so like we were talking way back then about like Gimbal and GoFast and stuff back then, and we're still talking about it now. It's
yep,
it's rather a long process.
yep.
Okay,
Right.
so I was thinking, like, we've got a bunch of people watching, and I think perhaps we should make sure we don't just immediately dive into like technical stuff, and we'll
Yes.
start talking about attenuation factors and stuff like that, and we'll lose people immediately.
Bore them
Uh,
to tears.
I
Can,
know,
can
I
I
know.
can I just quickly say one
Sure.
one thing off the bat? I'll probably lose some Twitter followers for this, but I do have to sing your praises, and you do some phenomenal work.
Thank you.
From the Chile video to their work with Starlink to those triangles. I think that's been fairly conclusively settled from my perspective, and I think most of all, most beneficial from my perspective and our side, if you want to call it that, have been your 3D recreation. So Sitrec and the actual 3D modeling of Gimbal, GoFast, all those videos that we all
Yeah.
know so well. So I want to get that out of the way. I take a nuanced approach to this, and I do want to thank you for that. But at a high level, we fundamentally disagree about those three
Sure.
Navy videos, and my beef with you, if you want to call it that,
Yeah, that's fine.
is that in media represent in media presentations, if you're interviewed, for example,
Yeah.
you'll kind of blithely say, "Oh, I think Gimbal's a distant jet," and that's it, right? And
I
and
usually add
nobody.
probably, I think.
Okay,
I
okay,
say,
I'll give you
especially
that. That's
nowadays.
fine. That's fine.
People
That's
have
fine.
called me on that before. You're
That's
not the first
fair.
person to mention that.
That's fair, but I think for the average viewer, and
Hmm.
certainly even the average viewer, probably of this presentation and this stream, even people that are in the weeds, they say, okay, that's that, and we should move on. But I fundamentally disagree, and I really want to maybe
Right. Yeah.
challenge you a little bit on the broader context, which you, so far, in my perspective, have not addressed. And I have a whole bunch of different slides that I'd like to present to you, and maybe we can go through those. And that's general, again, to your point.
Okay.
I don't want to dive into the ultra nitty gritty and bore people to tears right off the bat. So
Yeah, yeah, no,
if that's
that's
fair.
fine. No, and I understand. Like, and I've got that criticism a number of times from people. And what I'm trying to do is figure out what's being shown in these videos. And I think perhaps like a criticism people have leveled at me, which may be partly true, is that I focus on the videos themselves and not so much like things like the eyewitness accounts, even the audio of the videos and the other things like that, and the range foulers. I'm sure you'll get into that
Yep.
in a bit.
Yep.
I just want to clear up something real quick. Like someone on Twitter, somebody asked like who you are and who Jeremy is, and I said, you're a opinion writer for The Hill, and and obviously you're more than that. I mean, can you expound upon like
Yeah.
your history and credentials?
Sure.
Not
Sure.
credentials, but it's
yeah.
why should
Uh,
people listen to you type thing.
Well, they shouldn't, so look, I'll be honest with you. I'll just start off background in the government. I was an Obama administration appointee at the Department of Defense, and I supported the Secretary of Defense whenever he traveled. And then I went to grad school, focused on cheerful topic, weapons of mass destruction. There's a whole academic field
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
I know, but very bizarre stuff and pretty morose. But that's my academic background. I went back into government. I was at the State Department briefly. I worked on kind of counter WMD stuff. This is at the height of ISIS, when they were making all kinds of really nasty chemical weapons in northern Iraq and Syria, and got out of DC, and I'm now back home in my native California. I never once dealt with UAP. I didn't think about UAP. Not only did I think UAP, the whole topic was full of tinfoil hat wearers. I didn't think about.
Mm,
It wasn't a topic of anything that I put any thought into until I saw the Joe Rogan interview with Commander
Oh,
Fravor,
really?
and I'd worked
Yeah.
with and that was, I think, late 2019.
Yeah, that's after the New York Times article. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
no,
So,
I didn't catch it. I didn't,
yeah, I was expecting you to say New York Times, like everybody else
Nope,
does.
not
Yeah.
at all, not at all. And that's kind of to the point that I just didn't think about this. And
Yeah.
when I was at DoD, there were some Navy billets or positions that are assigned to certain individuals in kind of the world, the office that I worked in, and they were naval aviators, they were aviators. So I know how these folks, the persona, I know how they carry themselves. And Commander Fravor, in my opinion, was the real deal. It's like, holy moly,
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
It wasn't just one; it was 3 other individuals that saw this object, and that was kind of my trip down the rabbit hole. That's probably more than anybody wanted to know, but
No, that's good to know. It's good to know. And I've heard that a lot, and I wouldn't say I blame David Fravor, but he's certainly like the origin story for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people obviously I think he's telling the truth. In that I think he's relating what he saw.
Right.
I think he's perhaps a little bit overconfident in his assessment, and this will get me into trouble on Twitter. A little bit overconfident in his assessment of the accuracy of his interpretation of what he saw, and that there might be some other options. But
Fair enough.
This is the type of thing that you and I disagree upon, is like the veracity and the reliability of the pilots. There was an interesting
maybe less.
On that,
anyway, we can get into that. But yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for doing this. I just want to be very clear. I appreciate you taking the time, and I want to move this conversation forward. I'm sick of having the same discussions over this damn pod over and over. So I know,
and I think I hope that something can come out of this is that what the focus here shouldn't be on like you and I trying to persuade one another of things, because we've been doing that for quite a while. I think the focus with you and with Jeremy later should be on like, how do we resolve these disagreements? Like, I'm going to keep saying that I think it's probably a plane because I think it probably is, and I don't think there's been that good of a case made. But you keep saying the opposite. But are there actually things that technical things and other things that we can do to resolve it? And hopefully, like with Jeremy's input, we can come up with a few suggestions. But
and
maybe other people
brought
get
up
more
the
aware of
plane.
it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm glad you brought up the plane, because I think that's a great launching off point for our discussion. And if you're okay with it, I would like, everybody's seen this damn video, or most people have seen this video, but would it make sense for us to play the gimbal video in its entirety? Sure. And unfortunately, we for the folks watching, we tried to get the audio to go. Most people have heard it, but I think the audio is key to understanding the context of this. And that gets back to, Mick, your hypothesis that this is a plane.
Yeah, I guess we should have done it with subtitles, but yeah. All right, so let's play Gimbal. We can maybe you can voice over what people are saying.
I'll do my best Wizzo and naval aviator pilot.
Yes, it's rotating. Yeah. That's a famous line. Okay, so you want to play it, or shall
I? You go ahead. Go ahead. I think my go ahead.
I'm just okay. I am going to share my screen and do it on that screen over there. Probably the simplest. Okay, so this is the gimbal video. It starts out, everybody kind of knows the broad strokes of it, but we know that it's a thermal camera footage, and it's white hot at the start. So we're seeing something that's white and hot. Looks like a little peanut or something at that position, but I'm just going to play it and we can go through it. So I think at the start, the pilots are kind of going to look at that thing. What is it? I think someone asked, is it a drone? I think it's unclear as to exactly what they're saying with the drones footage. Some people interpret it as saying, and this is, no, I can't get the audio. It's not coming through. Yeah, so it switched to black hot, and this is the classic flying saucer shape, which I think is what gets people very excited about this. It's an actual flying saucer. The rotation. Someone goes, look at that thing. It's rotating. Now, then there's also within this, at some point they say there's a whole fleet of them. Yep. My gosh, they're all going against the wind. Wind's 120 knots out of the west. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's out of the west. Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. So that's kind of the whole context there, I think, is that we have them, they're focused on something that's far away. They're watching it for a while. They don't know what it is. They said, look at the SA page, which is the top-down view of the radar, the synthesized view of the radar, possibly from external sources, possibly from their own radar. And they say there's a whole fleet of them. And they say it's all going against the wind. Wind's 120 out of the west. And this is, and then the broader context, I don't know if you want to describe the broader context as Ryan Graves describes it. With,
yeah, definitely. And Mick, if I may, I'd like to just maybe go through a couple of Ryan's points, like a few other points too, if
sure.
I could screen share. And
sure, let me you bring it up on your thing, and I'll bring it down on mine.
Good. All right. So I'm technically challenged. So let me know if this works for folks. Allow, and then I will full screen that. Is that coming through?
All right. Yeah, I see a tweet. I shall add it up right now. Okay.
Perfect. Excellent. So what I'd like to do is just, again, I'm trying to take a very big picture, broader view of this, and I want to establish, Mick, and hopefully you can come with me on this. I want to establish that this is an extremely anomalous, bizarre, and that'll come back, event, the Gimbal event. So Ryan Graves has spent quite a bit of time looking through the FLIR, and just for folks, that's the forward-looking infrared. That's that camera. He has never seen anything like Gimbal. This is, and I won't bore you with the details, but this is a declassified email. I think John Greenwald got this. This is a write-up internally within the Department of Defense's public affairs shop, and they are discussing the air crew's reaction. This is not Ryan Graves. This is the actual air crew. And it's, quote, a heat signature that was unlike any aircraft they had seen. So moving along with the very anomalous.
That's a different case, though, isn't it? Because that says a VT9 instructor pilot.
Yeah, that's the VT9 instructor pilot that's what he was doing at the time in 2019.
Oh, okay. So, but he was.
Sorry.
Yeah. What, is this actually confirmed, though, that he's the WSO, which is the weapons systems operator of the backseater from one of the Gimbal flights?
So the WISO, and I hope I'm not betraying anybody's confidence, but the WISO, sorry, let me step back. The WSO is the weapons systems officer. That's the backseater. That's the person who does all the weapons systems. Literally, they manage all the kind of the tech, and the pilot flies the plane. That's an oversimplification, but I hope I'm not betraying anybody's confidence, but that individual became a pilot. He went from WISO, from a backseater to a front seater. So anyway, I'm just establishing again that this was, for people that spend a lot of time looking through the FLIR, this is a very, very anomalous.
No, and shape. I agree with that. And I think, just real quick aside there, I think that's the reason it's a UFO. If it wasn't anomalous, if it's something that people saw every day, it wouldn't become a UFO. And that's how we get UFOs. It's these anomalous thing. The question is it truly anomalous, or is it just an unlikely type of thing to happen?
Anyway, this is, I hope Jeremy doesn't mind, but I pulled this, after an hour, I think an hour and 10 minutes of you talking with Jeremy, whatever it was, a year ago, 6 months ago, whenever that was.
A year ago, I think.
Yeah, he as an ATFLR, let me back up. That is the name of the camera system, that infrared system. He is an expert. He's a technician, engineer. I'm not sure what exactly his quals are, but we'll get into that with him. So I'm really establishing, right? Here's Ryan, a subtle dig at you, Mick. I'll let folks maybe digest that, but I think I think a lot of it. I've spoken, and Mick, we've gone back and forth. I've spoken to aviators. I've sent you everything that I've got. I've sent you stuff from active duty WISOs who do not agree with you. But anyway, the bottom line is here, Ryan is.
I've spoken to aviators who do agree with me as well, but.
We can get into that. And now, so I want to zoom out, pardon me. And the video is, I love the way Lieutenant Graves put this. The video is a teeny tiny piece of the Gimbal puzzle. And what is far more important to me and interesting to me than 5 seconds or less of rotation or 36 seconds of a black blob on a screen is the broader context. And that is the multiple redundant systems, ID systems. These are combat aircraft. It's called, aviators have a name for this. It's who's who in the zoo. It's a critical element of air combat, is knowing who is where, when, and ideally why, right? And so you can engage or not engage based on who an individual is. So this is absolutely critical. You have multiple sensors. You have shared data link. That's when you see data link. PID is positive ID. IFF is identify friend or foe. Mick, you probably know, all this stuff.
Yeah.
You bring in airplane schedules, geographic. So again, I want to move away from the video and focus on the broader context. There's so much to this that I really want you to address, and
Sure.
I have a lot more to bring. But
A quick point of that whilst you're bringing it up is that the video is something that we actually have.
Yes.
And all this broader context, we only essentially have eyewitness recollections and a few some fairly contemporaneous accounts. But like the one you just posted earlier was something a few years later, the guy giving an account. And a lot of the stuff that Ryan has talked about has been also years later. So it's essentially we have a video, and then we have what sounds like lots of really great data, but it's really just recollections of that data. Which will probably get me into trouble again for doubting the word of people like Ryan Graves. But people do, memories change over time, and we don't have it to verify, unfortunately. But I get that we can make a case certainly with these things that people say.
Yeah, and Mick and you're right. I'm not going to dispute you on that. I will say that I worked in the government. I had a top secret clearance. We'll never see that radar data. I'm sorry. It's a shame. It sucks, right? And we all want to see it. But more to come on that in a minute here. And this is kind of rehashing, right? The FLIR, that video again is the last teeny tiny piece of the identification puzzle. I'm paraphrasing Lieutenant Graves here, right? And you have, according to him, there is a lot of data pumping in and figuring out what this is. It shouldn't be as difficult as it is, right? This is, I'll go to the bottom there. PHID is positive hostile identification. So there's multiple, again, redundant systems that work in concert in a carrier battle group pre-combat deployment. So I think I've harped on that enough. I think this is perhaps one of the most important bits from Lieutenant Graves, but basically it's an overview of what happened. Long story short, really complex air-to-air mission with multiple aircraft. They're all going back to the boat one by one. They can't go back all at once. There's only one runway. And so one of the jets that was going back towards the carrier got a radar lock and went to investigate. And I think this is the key section right here. This is Graves. I know what you're going to say. It's just recollections. But we do have to listen to the pilots at some point. They know what they're doing, in my opinion. They're highly trained. They're going to war, literally going to war. And they don't, they take this stuff very seriously. This is life and death. And I do want to highlight the bottom there. And Mick, this is why I'm doing this with you. Any serious analysis that excludes this context must account for the exclusion as part of the analysis, as it is a valid source of data. In my opinion, Mick, you have not done that. I want to see that.
I get that. I get that. And I do focus on the video because it's the actual data that we actually have. Now, I haven't ignored all this other stuff. Like I have done work trying to incorporate that into Sitrec. You've probably seen where in Sitrec I have a simulation of the SA page, which has been in there a long time, like a year or so, where it shows a fleet, and I try to reconstruct the possible trajectories of that. I think that's Ryan's reconstruction.
And sorry if Lieutenant Graves is watching. I apologize. I did steal this from him, but this is kind of a rehash of what was seen on the radar display. This is a God's eye view. People are looking down. It's a top-down view, and so you have the gimbal object comes to a stop, and then it goes in the other direction. So I'd like to maybe quickly go over to.
Well, just real quickly on that, because I got a point there. I talked to Ryan about this maybe a couple of years ago, and I remember at the time he didn't actually recall what setting the SA page was in terms of the distance to the end of the screen. So I mean, it's kind of a bit weird that he comes up with this later. I'm not doubting him, his honesty, but it seems like he didn't remember what the scale was, and then he's got this scale here because it's supposed to be 6 to 8 miles or something. So also with this simulation here, it doesn't rotate with the plane. incorporating that at all. It's kind of a simplistic. It's not really in any way some kind of accurate representation of what he would have seen on the screen, because everything just moves as if the plane is flying in a straight line when we know the plane is actually banking quite a lot to the left.
Okay, we can get to that. What I do want to, I'm going to get to your point about what folks saw, and I think this is something that not many people have caught, and I think it's extremely important. And that is what happened after the gimbal flight landed, and that was the debrief. And this was, it's not just Ryan maybe misremembering. I'm taking Ryan at his word here. Sorry, that we, the air wing had a crowd, or the squadron, or whatever level it was, had a crowd of, quote, fascinated intel officers and aircrew who watched all the data, right? They didn't just watch the 36 seconds of the video. They watched the radar data, the situational awareness with all the various data inputs and feeds, and it got to the point where they didn't know what to make of it. And they said, "Hey, Admiral, whatever, come down and take a look." And the Admiral, was, quote, exasperated that these things could operate in carrier airspace with impunity. So, sorry, this made its way up to ATIP and Lou Elizondo. We know that because Ryan said that, and that was reported in the New York Times. So this got up to
well, that's why why we have it right now, is that Lou Elizondo leaked this video. So I think it's something that perhaps was gained some notoriety within the community. Back real quick to like you said, they shared all the data back then. I think, and I could be wrong here, and we could maybe check this with Jeremy, is that all you get from the cockpit recorder is one video that's recording the two screens, and it does it in kind of a compressed format. So it's like half of it is kind of a squished version of the SA page, and the other half is the radar. I don't think they actually have the actual data as such. It's more like you're seeing what the pilot saw in the plane.
We can check that. I think the theory,
we can check that with Ryan as well.
Yeah, I think the theory is that the video, much to everybody's chagrin, the video cut out fairly quickly, and I think the theory is that if you're correct, that they switched over to the SA display and they couldn't show that, they couldn't release that because that is classified. So that was on the rest of the tape, wherever that tape may be.
I think it's side by side. I think this is something that Jeremy mentioned as well. I think he told me actually that because you see that if you look at the video, if you zoom in on this video, the pixels are actually spread out sideways, and the reason for that is that it's half size video in the screen, and then they have to stretch it out. But
okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a minor point, but it's just it'd be good to know what they actually saw in terms of data in the debrief. Was it just like what the pilot saw? Was there additional data? Because you'd think they would have a recording of all the like SA type stuff on some kind of central server.
Whatever it is, whatever they saw or didn't saw, it got to the point where the Admiral went to the Pentagon, Office of Naval Intelligence, and ATIP and said, "This is unbelievable. This needs to stop. We know Tim got you dead. Tim got you dead."
How do you know the Admiral went to the Pentagon?
Right there. And Graves has said that.
But it doesn't say that he went to the Pentagon. He just said that the Admiral had reported the incursion.
I can send you the video. Somebody can fact check me. I absolutely, Graves has said very clearly in his conversations with Senate staff that it went to Lou Elizondo. Yeah. So, yes.
All right.
So then 4 years later, this went up to the Senate. I don't think the Senate gets briefed, Senate Armed Services Committee gets briefed on glare and radar glitches. That's just my interpretation, but I just don't think that.
Obviously not. This, so there's two possible things going on here. Either it's they were briefed on something that actually was glare and radar glitches, and that's a bad thing, or there's something flying around that we didn't know what it was, which is also a bad thing. So one of two kind of bad things are possibilities. There are probably other things as well. But yeah, I would agree that if they knew it was radar glitches, they're not going to get briefed on it. But could they be accidentally radar glitches that ended up being briefed upon? That obviously nobody thinks that this is this. Well, not everybody. Like people like Ryan Graves will tell you that this couldn't actually happen. But I don't think this is something that we can say with certainty. Anyway, see, we're going to the range fowler here.
Yes, sir. The range fowler. So this is basically a write-up. This is a report of what the weapons systems officer, the backseater who recorded the video, presented to the Senate Armed Services Committee. And credit to the Twitter folks, Zane and Yannick have done a really good job. And I think you put this also up on your on Metabunk. But
yeah,
we took a guess at what these
that's a bit dodgy, I think. Like you've got a lot of stuff there that
feel free to push back. Feel free to push back.
But it's easy to read things into things when you kind of want it to be a. I'm not saying like you're necessarily doing that, but you've got a lot of things here which are redacted, and you're putting in things that like kind of look like it fits, but it's very easy to put something else in there as well.
I can switch out to another one without with no redactions or sorry.
No, you can leave it there, but I just want people to be clear that these things that are in are highlighted or lowlighted are things that you are inserting yourself.
Absolutely, I want to be very clear that this is that we took guesses at the redacted sections, but the point is, how does closest point of intercept? And that's not redacted, right? The closest point of intercept make any sense? How does let me back up. A stern conversion is a very standard maneuver to basically sneak up behind an air target.
They weren't doing a stern conversion.
They absolutely.
If you look at like what's going on in the video, it's nothing like a stern conversion. A stern conversion is basically where you fly behind somebody and go behind their tail. It's like
they're positioning to. Okay, we're going to get
here.
Lost.
We've got some. Well, yeah, it's spinning the wheel, but like I think this is an important thing because if you say like you said a stern conversion is a very specific maneuver, but they do not appear to be doing a stern conversion. I know Ryan has said that they were, but if you look at the actual path that the plane takes,
can you see my mouse?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so they're doing a turn like this, right?
Yeah, they're turning to the left.
So they're going to do this. And then come in around behind it.
Right, but we don't see any of that.
That's what a stern conversion would be, right? They're coming in. You don't want to come in abreast of it. You want to turn left into it and then turn right and come in behind it. That's a stern conversion. That's a stern conversion. Okay, so we only saw this part.
Yeah, we don't see them do that in the video though. We see them turning to the left.
Correct. They're turning into the target, and then a stern convert would have been coming in behind it like that.
Sure. So maybe they're planning on doing a stern conversion, and maybe they did it later, but it's not something we see in the video.
It is the big. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna lose people. I want to just add that. Let's stay on topic here. Closest point of intercept. Does that make any sense for a distant plane?
No, because I think they think that it was closer because they talked to like 6 to 8 miles, and so I think they saw something on the radar that they thought was closer. That appeared to be closer on the radar, and maybe there was something closer on the radar. So,
are you familiar with Jehemix? Do you know what Jehemix is?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Sorry to get lost. It's the joint helmet mounted system. It's like Apple Vision Pro. That's the best way I can put it for pilots. And they can see, they look out and they can see right where a target is. It displays it on their visor, right? And
virtual augmented reality heads-up display, essentially.
And when the FLIR is slaved and correlated with a radar track, there is a certain it literally says C on that display, and that'll say when they're correlated, they're looking at the same exact target. So there are multiple systems in place here to give these the aviators high confidence that they were close, 5 miles away, 6 miles away.
Yeah, I mean, you can again though you're kind of reading things into these redacted things here.
No, just because the closest point of it. I'm just telling you.
Right, but I mean, it doesn't mention anything about a C appearing in the head-up display. He's just saying that there was a closest point of intercept, and it was approximately so many miles. That was actually redacted. They don't know what it was, and there was no, I guess, visual contact with the craft. That's probably accurate. They never actually saw it, so they never confirmed visually where it was. They just had radar tracks, and they had the FLIR video. But anyway, carry on.
Okay, and I did want to add that when the pilot said that is the LNS, what does that mean to you?
It's the lock and steer, is it? It means
Launch and steering,
launch and
yes.
steering. Yeah, so it's basically the tracking system that they I can't remember what the context would be in
Launch
this
and
situation.
steering is the selected radar target, and what he's saying is that what you're looking at on the FLIR, on that video, on the gimbal video, that is the selected radar target. So we are looking at the same thing. The radar is looking at the same. Sorry, the FLIR is looking at the same thing that the radar is locked on to, and they had a stable.
Yeah, I
track
think that's
file,
somewhat
right?
disputed as to exactly what that means, because we have this that is LNS audio, which unfortunately we don't have here. But is he referring to the actual thing that's on Gimbal, or is he referring to something that's on the SA page? It could be he's talking about the part of the fleet.
No. So the launch and steering is what is selected on the plane's radar, like what the plane's onboard radar is looking at. And he's saying that's what it is.
All right.
So it's not some distant jet. It's the object that is 4 to 6 miles away.
All right. So again, though, all we have is this. We don't have I can't say we can say for sure exactly what's going on here, because all we have is this somewhat unclear audio about what it's referring to, and this largely redacted report, which doesn't really mention LNS.
Okay. Well, he said, okay. He's very clearly saying we are looking at, in the video, we are looking at the selected radar target, which is 4 to 6 miles away.
By him saying that is LNS. So one guy says that isn't LNS, is it? And
that's
the other guy
that's
says
the Wizzo.
That's
the backseater, and the pilot controls what is selected, and he says that is the launch.
Wouldn't the Wizzo? Why wouldn't the Wizzo?
The pilot gets to fire all the guns.
The weapons systems operator doesn't.
He does all the radar stuff, right? He's not going to. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All right. So last things last. The Gimbal and GoFast incidents occurred amid daily UAP incursions.
Right.
You probably think they're balloons or drones or whatever.
Well, I know that a lot of them are balloons, or probably not drones so much, but we know from Arrow's work that a lot of them are balloons.
So here's what you're up
quite
against,
explicitly.
Mike. Here's what you're up against. You're up against a lot. I mean, what is your theory exactly? Given the context that we just discussed, what is your theory for this distant plane? Like, please explain what happened in your opinion.
Well, first of all, I've got two theories for Gimbal. Kind of one builds upon the other, like a Venn diagram. One of them is that it's a glare of a hot object. There's thunder going on here. One of them is a glare of a hot object, and that is something that I go over in my video of showing the things rotating and the lights moving and stuff like that, lights in the sky and the bumps and the little graphs and everything. And that doesn't say anything about the distance, so it could be something that's closer. I don't think it is, because this path that's very nearby, I think, seems very highly physically implausible and doesn't make any sense, even if it was some kind of advanced technology ship. There's no real correlation between movement and acceleration.
Can I interject real quick on that?
Sure.
Okay. So the aviators and what Ryan recollects is a very specific maneuver by that gimbal object, right? It's chugging along in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Comes to a stop, very brief stop, and then it literally changes direction and goes back. That's what he he
describes it as a ping pong, like bouncing off a wall, which also isn't what we see in the video. We don't really see it bouncing off a wall or anything. It doesn't go boing. It goes.
I'm sorry, I can't see you. I appreciate the sound effects.
Well, all right, moving slowly from. Let me just turn your screen off real quick. But a ping pong would be like, coming on boing, like, bouncing off something. And he described it as that at some point. But what it does is essentially it slows down to a stop and then turns around and goes the other way. Well, when I say it does that if you force a straight line traversal over the the lines of sight, getting into the weeds again, but like, there's various ways you can solve the puzzle of where this plane might be. And if you just make it go in a straight line, it does that. It goes forward and backwards, but it also climbs up again. And your point obviously is that you think that matches the verbal description, which I would disagree with. But anyway, put your slide back up.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just share kind of Lieutenant Gray's, according to this, right? There's a pause. Right, it's moving in one direction, a pause, and then it moves the other way. Brief pause. He doesn't remember. To be fair, he doesn't remember how long that pause may have been, but it was some sort of short pause.
Yeah, I would say real quick is that he came up with this after you all discussed this this 3-dimensional movement. He wasn't really describing it like this beforehand.
Okay. I don't know the chronology there. All I can tell you is that's a very specific maneuver, and if we put the range given with high confidence by the aircrew into 4 different, any number of 3D simulations, not just yours, not just ours, not just his, not just hers, they all find that exact maneuver
it's not complicated.
at the distance given by the aircrew. And not only that, the rotation, and I don't want to talk about rotation. We'll save that for Jeremy. It matches down to the second with that.
No,
key.
It does not, and that's something that it absolutely does not match. And you can look at that. I've got it, and I've got Sitrec here, and we could look at it. But you can go through. You can see that the rotation does not match the curve.
Okay, we'll look at it.
It's essentially random.
It's
essentially random. It's it's turning because the camera is turning, I think, but it doesn't match. There's no physical correlation between.
We'll look at that with Jeremy.
The tilt.
Well, I promise we'll get to all the rotation stuff with Jeremy. I promise.
Sure.
So okay. So what is your theory? So we have a never before seen glare. Nobody's seen this. People think.
Yeah, and that's why it's a UFO. Like, we only get UFOs from things that people haven't seen before. So it has to be something that's not happened before. Or at least is something that the various people are not familiar with, and then later it doesn't get resolved because people still aren't familiar with. So I think, there probably has to be something wrong with the ATFLR.
You think? So there's a malfunction. Okay, that's great. That's helpful.
A small malfunction, something like it just being a little bit out of focus or something like that. Because you've seen like Dave Falch did some videos. Dave Falch is an ATFLR, he's a FLIR technician. He just does regular FLIR stuff. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm here, so I might hopefully my internet survives. So Dave Falch did things where he took video of a distant plane and he took it a little bit out of focus, and we got a glare shape almost exactly like what we see in Gimbal.
I promise we'll get to the ATFLR, like all the nitty gritty, and we'll get to that.
So you're asking me like what my theory is that I think it's a different plane, but like you want to justify everything.
Yeah, I just want to. You need to account for all of what you're seeing in front of you. If you want to put forward a theory, you have to account for all of it. Sure.
Well, the way I do it is I kind of separate them into 2 things. I think that there was something like a distant plane off in the distance, and the ATFLR's camera was focused on that, and it hit that. And I think simultaneously with that, weird coincidence, but that's why we have UFOs, is the way weird coincidences happen. There was something on the radar, like this fleet of things, and this other target, the thing that turned around. And I don't think that they were the same thing, because obviously, I don't think it was a close object. I think that's very unlikely. I mean, I think it was a hot object, but I don't think it was a close object.
Of course, you don't think it's a close object, because then it's anomalous, right? That's not your.
Well, that's not the reason why. That's not the reason why. The reason I think it's not a close object is that we have a very simple explanation that for the video, which is that it's a distant object. Because if you do the lines of sight solution for something that's 30 nautical miles away, then we get basically a straight line at fairly level flight. And coincidentally, if you take that straight line and you project it back to the line of the plane that moved, you get this weird J-shaped thing. So it seems far more likely that this weird J-shaped thing is just the result of this distant plane, rather than something like breaking all the laws of physics to do this bizarre maneuver, which
Okay.
no one has ever seen before. And that's, if you're talking about things that are weird and unusual, like you can't discount like something making mistakes because you think something even more weird and unusual is more likely.
Okay. So Occam's razor. Let's talk Occam, right? You are the opposite. You're the opposite of Occam, right? Occam is not what's simpler; it's what's more parsimonious. And you are now at malfunctioning FLIR, malfunctioning FLIR in such a way that
these aren't new entities. Occam says do not multiply entities unnecessarily. It says it in Latin or some other language, but that's what it's saying. And we're not adding new things. You're adding an entire new form of technology. I'm just adding people making mistakes and the equipment being a bit out of whack. These are things that we know exist. You're adding things that we don't know exist. And so for Occam would definitely go for my explanation over your explanation because it's not introducing new entities.
So that's not the way I understand it. It's parsimony, right? Like you want to have as few assumptions as possible.
No, you don't want to add anything.
We'll let
do
the
not
Twitterverse...
do not multiply entities unnecessarily. That's like a direct quote from Occam, translated into English. But
we'll let the Twitterverse sort that out.
You could say it was an angel, and that's the explanation with the fewest entities. But it's introducing an entirely new form of being that we don't know actually exists. So because it's introducing something, it breaks Occam's razor. So Occam's razor is don't add new stuff. You don't have to make things up.
You're adding a lot of unsupported assumptions here. So we'll set that aside, right? So explain to me what exactly happened with the radar. They didn't lock on to the radar target.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with the radar. I don't know what happened.
You don't know.
I don't have a good theory.
Explanation, Mick.
Yeah, but maybe it was faulty. Maybe there was some kind of anomalous return. I know there's a guy on Twitter who you had a long discussion with. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's a guy who works at NASA. And he's familiar with these types of systems, and he proposed a few things. I mean, it could be that it was actually a Computex thing, like this computerized training exercise that was up there.
That's not what the comp. It's component. That's not what Comp2X.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, but basically, it's were simulated targets.
Okay, you think that would have gone up to in the debrief with all the aircrew?
Only if they didn't figure it out. So, like, say the system goes wrong and it pops up like a bad target. Like, you think that's more or less likely than a new form of advanced technology that no one's actually seen before just happens to appear in front of this plane. I think that you're positing things that are quite extraordinary. And I think if you're going to posit those extraordinary explanations as possible, we also need to consider extraordinary explanations that involve the mundane.
And absolutely, and that's what we're discussing here. The list of malfunctions and bizarre kind of coincidences, and it's like, I don't know how many times I could explain how these systems work, and this is what we're describing.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's an unlikely set of circumstances. For my explanation to work, it's an unlikely set of circumstances. But for your explanation to work, there has to be some kind of new form of advanced technology. So unlikely set of circumstances, or something that can defy gravity.
And nobody said defy gravity. Hold on.
Well, if your trajectory is defying gravity, it comes to a stop. Yeah, but you're suggesting a particular trajectory, are you not? You're suggesting this J thing is the actual path that this object took, and that it also rotated.
That's what lines up with the data. That's what matches the data. It's in the data at the distance.
That requires a new form of advanced technology because essentially it's an anti-gravity drive.
Well, that would be phenomenal. I've never posited that. I've never advocated that. I've never spoken about NHI and all this stuff.
I mean,
I think you're trying to push me into that corner, and I don't think that's...
No, let's leave NHI. Fair. Let's say it's just, Dr. Evil, or it's like maybe it's the US government or someone else has done it. Humans, it's not anything special, but you are positing a craft that can do things that our current technology cannot do. Flying in that way isn't something that any known craft that we have could actually do that. So you are suggesting something entirely new. I'm suggesting things going wrong and people making mistakes.
All I'm saying is that what it can be found, what the aviators say can be found specifically in the data.
Yeah, kind of. If you have shoehorn it in there, but like they didn't see something do a J hook. They didn't see it like raise up in the air. They saw, on the radar something appear to slow down and stop and then go back. There was also this fleet of things which no one even saw that were going all over the place. Nobody actually even saw those.
And what do you think that fleet was? Because Lieutenant Graves has a theory on what they were, but what do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. What's Ryan's theory then?
Well, you're the one who's going out saying that Gimbal's a distant jet.
Right.
You have to account.
Do I though? Do I have to account for it?
Absolutely.
I think, yeah. Okay. So, but what I'm suggesting an explanation for what's seen in the video.
No,
and I'm saying
that you're going on the media and you're saying I think this is a distant jet.
I do think that, but I don't know what those things are on the radar, and I don't think that not knowing means that the explanation of it being a distant jet is immediately disqualified. There could be a distant jet and perhaps a variety of different possible explanations for what we see on the radar. So just because I don't know what one thing is doesn't mean I can't accurately characterize what another thing appears to be.
Do you find it interesting that we can find in the data exactly what the air, or what, I know you're going to take, what the air crew generally suggests, that we can find it at the specific range that they give? Do you find that interesting?
Not incredibly interesting. It's something that, maybe it's something that's what we see. It might be a clue as to why they see that on the radar, because the plane is turning in a certain way. Maybe the target appears to do those things because of the type of radar malfunction it is. Maybe that's a clue for if there's some kind of radar echo or something like that. Somebody suggested that the 5 objects are just one target that's further away, and the system got that wrong. But it could be a clue. But I don't think it means that was the real object.
And I hate to venture down the. Oh shoot, we're only 9 minutes away from Jeremy. Okay, well,
incoming. That's why I wanted to do an hour
Mick,
at the start.
Time flies when we're having fun, buddy. Can I maybe? Okay, so let me share, if I may. This might be a good tee up for Jeremy. I might share my screen here, and I'm going to tempt fate and try to share an actual video. All right. Is that coming through for you?
Yep, I see. Let's see. That's like Sitrec.
Outstanding. And again, I want to sing your praises, Mick. Thank you for making this tool. We find, this is really important, because this allows us to corroborate what we found in different models. And so here's when you actually account for the wind, when you put the local, right, the wind in the same air mass to 0, which I think you might not have done. You get this remarkable match between, is it playing? That long continuous rotation and that vertical J hook.
But you don't, though. If you take all the individual small rotations, they're just in separate parts of it. One of them's kind of after you've gone past the apex. And I'm not really seeing this smooth rotation. And one of them I did in Sitrec, I do a curve that shows all the different things. I could probably bring that up real quick.
Hang on. Am I losing my mind here, Mick? Or maybe Twitter, somebody can help me. Like I see a
you see it rotate
match
as it gets to the end.
Sorry. Let me tee. I'm so sorry. Let me tee this up. So the close path, the one that the aviators reported on the radar screen, is this green line, and think of it as a vertical U-turn. So it's going up, and I don't know if you guys can see my hand, but it's doing one of these.
You can see your hand, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a vertical U-turn is the best way I can put it. And it does this, like there's this apex of this turn, this curve, right? And that matches to the second with the video. This is, for me, the smoking gun. That's extraordinary.
I'm not sure. By to the second, that doesn't seem particularly accurate to me. And
okay,
I've actually looked into this particular. I looked into this particular claim a lot, and I can't see what you're saying. I think you maybe need to make a better video that shows these things. And I tried doing stuff with. I'm not sure if I have it right now, but let me just bring up my screen real quick. Can
I share one more before you do that? Can I share one more video?
Sure. Okay. hang on. I just removed you. I wanted to remove myself. There you go.
All right. Good to go, or do I need to wait?
Oh, it doesn't. You haven't shared anything.
Okay. Yeah. Hang on. Sorry. Maybe this isn't a better way to play it. Media player. There we go. Cool. All right. Is that coming through for folks?
Let's see. Yep, we see that.
All right. So this is
so
a
you can wave your hands around.
view. Yeah. This is a side view, a lateral.
Okay. Yeah,
view.
this looks a bit better.
Okay. Cool. And I apologize. All right. Anyway, so you have there's those small rotations, and we have theories on what those are. They match the data. Okay, 1, 2, and here comes the fun part. Look at that. Look at that match. It's like literally down to the minute.
Right, but it keeps going after it comes out of the curve, and then there's another rotation after that when it gets further out of that. I mean, why is it going in steps? Like UFOs don't rotate in steps.
I don't.
Sorry, I'm just kidding.
We're treading into uncharted territory.
I know. It's just a joke. I apologize.
No, it's good. I appreciate it. But do we agree that there are 4 rotations?
Yeah, I think there are 4. Yes, as I recall.
Okay. Do we agree that the first 2 are quick, rapid, short rotations?
And the last one, yeah, and then there's one.
Yeah,
the
and do
third
we
one
agree
is
that
the one
the
that's
third
long.
one is the long and continuous one, and it matches down to, again, the second, the path at the distance with high confidence.
I don't think it does. It's
smoking gun, folks.
Yeah, I know you've made this argument, but I think perhaps it needs to be put in a more quantitative way with some actual graphs and things. You can say think about what's actually going on here, like the thing's turning around, and you're thinking it's turning around for some reason. And something I did actually in Sitrec. Let me just put Sitrec up real quick.
Yes.
We've got 5 minutes. All right, so this is my Sitrec, and yeah, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so people can see a bit better, which will take our images off the screen. This down here is the essay page, my simulation of the essay. Can you see this?
I can, yeah.
Okay, right. So everyone can see. I'm just want to make sure you're seeing it. All right, and down here, these are this is my simulation, and this is the actual video. This is the fleet of things. The fleet appears on the essay page when we go through it. Oh, sorry, I'm not looking at the wrong screen here. Now, these pink bars here are the rotations.
Okay.
On the graph, and I think I can drag this around. Oh no, I can't drag that around. I'll drag this around. Now, let me bring up this, make it a little bit bigger so we can see it. Sorry, let me
tell you what, that's why
Mick,
can we get back to this as soon as we start with Jeremy?
I just want to show what I've been doing, just as because we were suggesting the quantitative way of actually doing it. These pink things represent the actual rotations. This graph is a graph of acceleration, and I wanted to see if there was any correlation between the two things. Like this is the long one here, and these are the 2 short ones. And if you could do a graph like this that shows something that you think is actually correlated, I think that would go a long way to doing it. There doesn't really seem to be any correlation. This one happens on this flat bit. This one happens before the turn. This one happens part way into the turn and continues after the turn has ended, like there. And then there's another one here that's just doing nothing. So there doesn't really seem to be this correlation, you think, and it's happening at that point because that's the apex of the turn of the plane.
I'll look into it. I promise. Mick, tell me, how does the ATFLR pod match the reconstructed trajectory, the rotation of the pod match the reconstructed trajectory to the second at the distance given by the emitters? Like it is the perfect
it matches it. It'll match it to pretty much any distance because what you have reconstructive curve is the same. It's the same curve as the curve of the plane. Like
change the distance. Go to 15. Go to 15 miles.
You've been looking at it. Everything at this distance is this curve. This is the curve of the plane. Down here, let me see, down here, and if you change the distance, you just get this J hook in different configurations, and you get the same curve.
You do, but it doesn't match the rotation. That long rotation does not match at those further distances.
It's all at the exact same thing because it's the same lines of sight.
Okay, go to 20 miles, for example.
Well, that's on the other side of the thing. Like everything on this side works, but at this point the lines cross over. So after that, it's all everything starts to straighten out
Video
like this.
matches the reconstructions at the distance.
Yeah, and this matches the video, and this is a straight line.
It is most certainly not a straight line. If you zoom in,
it's straight enough.
It's straight enough.
Is this not a straight-ish line?
The state of debunking. It's straight enough.
Is this not a straight enough line that an FA-18? All right. Well, it's not going to get more bend. It's going to get even straighter if I zoom in. If I look at it from the end like this, it's going to look bendy. But that's like looking down a pool cue. It doesn't mean anything.
That's not a straight line, buddy. I'm sorry.
But it is actually a perfectly adequately straight line for people flying around in FA-18s.
I'd love to keep going. We can go on for days, man. But can we just talk briefly on FLIR 1, if you don't mind? I'd love to see. Yeah, I have a couple points to pick with you there, and I don't want to waste your time. Do you want me
to bring it up, FLIR 1, or do you want to play it? Jeremy's not here yet, so we
got some time to play. If you don't mind, I will put up. What is your theory?
He's not.
Yeah. What is your theory for FLIR 1? What distance? What is happening in FLIR 1?
FLIR 1, I think, is a plane banking away to the left.
To the left.
To the left.
Okay. Can I just quickly? I'm sorry to do this, but I have a beef with you on a couple videos that you still have up, and they really bother me because people still view these.
The one where I do the silhouette of the plane. And
yes, and you have it banking right. You have it banking right, and I wish I could play the audio, but unfortunately, tech problems. Here, let me share my screen. Sorry, this is should be a little smoother. Okay. Remember, this is your theory right here, right? Or your video? Is that coming through?
Oh yeah, hang on, let me just bring it up. Okay, yeah, that obviously
you have it banking to the right.
I know this is old. This is old.
Yeah, it bothers me that you still. And this is not the only video. There's a couple. There's at least one more that you have it going the wrong way. So people are still watching these and still getting the wrong impression.
I can put a disclaimer on that video. I think but yeah, I think what I've been working obviously is Sitrec, and that. It doesn't match either because I've got an FA-18 there, which I think isn't actually a match for what we see.
It's not a match.
I know.
It's not a match.
I keep meaning to put other planes in, when I've got some time. So I brought. I'm just sharing my screen here again. So this is viewed from above. The bluish line, the cyan line, is the actual plane taking the video, and this is the proposed trajectory of the thing. I can't remember how far away it is. Let's see. How do I start out? So that starts out 15 nautical miles away right here. So that's 15 nautical miles, and I think it ends up about the same distance, maybe a little closer.
Can I
banking to the right? Let me just show you the comparison, because this is what you were talking about. I can zoom in on Jeremy's here. Let me just do this real quick. Hey Jeremy, I'll bring you up in 1 second. Video zoom. So I'm going to zoom in here. And something I added to Sitrec recently is accurate banking, so it actually banks a little bit now.
Okay.
So here's, I guess
that is not a match, brother.
So that's not a match. No, it's not a very good match.
And it almost, hear me out, Mick. It almost looks like a Tic Tac on the right. I don't know. I might be crazy.
I don't know. It looks like a potato than a Tic Tac. But
anyway, we can go for hours.
All right, Jeremy's here, so I'm going to bring Jeremy in. Let me just bring that off. And hello, Jeremy.
What's up, man?
Hello, folks. Finally good to meet you, Marik.
Yeah.
Good to meet you.
Glad you could be here. Did you catch any of the previous discussion that we were just having?
I did not. I just got home a few minutes ago.
All right. Well, we'll just go over the entire thing all over again.
No, please no.
Yeah, we had a spirited discussion about various things. And so, we started this with Marik and me, and Marik gave a little bit of detail on his background. Maybe for the audience, you could kind of explain who you are and what your expertise is in this field.
You saying Marik to go, or to tell Marik who I am?
Oh,
you go.
You tell the audience, because Marik. I'm saying Marik already did that.
Okay, so hello, audience. My name is Jeremy, and I am a Navy veteran. I served for 6 years in the Navy, spent a majority of my career in aerospace, and from 2006 to 2013, I worked on Raytheon, primarily on the ATFLIR program, hence this is why these guys contacted me.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that brief
Just the guy we need to talk to.
Yeah. So, do you want to start out, Marik? You have some questions for Jeremy?
I mean, hey, brother, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you mind if I?
But you're going to anyway.
Mick, do you mind? I want you to. This is from your simulator, Mick, and this is what. And I want you to tell me. I want to make sure I'm being fair to what your theory is, and I want to share my screen and see if this tracks with what you're. And maybe you can explain if this is accurate. You can explain what is happening. Does this look? Is that coming through? First of all,
yeah.
I got it. And I do want to ask one question real quick. Sure. Do I need to keep my sailor filter on?
I don't think so. No. We're all grown-ups here.
Okay, and, because there may be a few words that prop up every now and then.
No one cares.
I'll outdo you any day of the week.
Okay. I could stay very professional. I've had to do that throughout most of my life, but anyway. But I want to keep everything as natural and
that way
just everyone feels like they could share whatever they want. No one has any awkward feelings. Let's just have a good discussion about everything.
And to be fair, Mick, I think I hope I don't want to speak for you, but I thoroughly enjoyed the first hour of this. To be honest with you, I think it was very
it's all good.
illuminating. So all right, so yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking at my gimbal simulator. This is the original gimbal simulator. It's not Sitrec. It's just gimbal, and you're using Gimbal 1, I see, which is good because that's the original one, which is the gimbal. The newest one isn't quite right. But yeah, so it's showing what would happen if you track an object left to right and you rotate the pod by the same amount as the glare rotates. So each of the main rotations of the full unit, which is the EOSU, electro-optical something unit, is rotating. Sensor unit. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. The rotation there is driven essentially in that simulation by the glare. So it's not trying to simulate doing anything other than that. It's just going by the glare. And we see what happens is that the rotation kind of matches what you would expect from the pod tracking. So your pod has to you got to go up and down, you got to rotate to track, and it shows what you would expect. And it's tracking that, but it's going in steps. And every time it gets more than about 2.5 degrees away from being directly bore sighted, it does a roll, essentially.
Okay. Now, one thing I do want to ask, is this still the old model that doesn't have the yaw in there?
Well, I mean, the yaw is kind of like what you're seeing with the difference between the two circles there.
Because with the yaw, if something's rotating and it happens to be kind of off or whatever, the yaw is going to pull back in a bit whilst it rotates, and it may go in. I don't want to say steps, so to say, but you kind of get the idea. But you have that. It's plus or minus, I think, 5 degrees about that, and the yaw would help, pull something back in.
Let me bring it up here. So what I think what we're saying there is what you call the yaw is what I guess Marik, and when we discuss things, we're talking about the internal mirrors or the internal gimbals, which are steering the beam or steering the line of sight independently. Well, it's together, but it's it's a separate, an additional gimbal that is steering the line of sight in addition to the pitch and the roll. So there's pitch and roll, which we see on the outside of the pod.
But I'm saying the yaw
is my model.
There you go.
That's roll, and here's pitch, and inside here there's yaw. Which
inside it is yaw.
Yeah.
So can I? Go ahead. Sorry.
So what my theory is that yaw, the internal thing is being used to track, but when it gets too far away from near the middle of where it's supposed to be, it then has to engage the roll drive of the EOSU to correct for that and bring it back together. And what the video Marik just showed is that kind of stepped motion of the EOSU's rotation, essentially, which matches the glare rotation, and that's where the glare, in my theory, rotates.
Mick, can we compare that just so Jeremy gets a sense of what I think on our side, and with the patent documents, all the folks we've talked to, what we think the rotation looks like? And I think I've got that queued up for you here.
Sure, yeah.
Is it coming through?
Hang on, sorry.
Not yet.
I gotta add it. Okay, so
here's what my understanding of how the pod would have tracked the gimbal object. None of that jaggedy stop and start rotation, just a very simple, benign rotation.
Yeah, so this will be like if there is no internal gimbal steering at all. And I guess what I'm saying is that the yaws, I'm sure that's the technical term correctly, because you're the expert, Jeremy. The yaw is, still creates the same smooth path of the line of sight, but the EOSU doesn't roll continuously. And here, in this simulation, Marik's showing the EOSU is rotating continuously because all that is being used to track it in this particular simulation is the EOSU, the roll, and the pitch.
And my understanding of this yaw function, and Jeremy, shoot me down, but I went 12 rounds with 12 rounds with a very senior Raytheon engineer, and after looking at the patents, and I understood the yaw to only kick in around the singularity, so we don't have gimbal lock, right? So it allows it within a certain range, a 3-degree, that's what the patents say, a certain range of the singularity that it'll kick in, it'll stop rolling, and that's not applicable to gimbal because of various factors, but that's what I understood the yaw to be.
Yeah, it's not there to be like a primary function. It's there as like kind of a secondary / tertiary, kind of to help pull things into center. Be like it'll like you say, engage near the singularity, and that way it gives time for everything else to catch up, and that way everything's back in center again, and that way the yaw is free. Is like, okay, I'm here if you need me.
Yeah.
So, and that makes sense. I think that was like kind of the original thinking that we were having with thing, but obviously it does it a bit outside of the singularity as well. It would have to the way it's tracking, and this getting into the weeds a little bit here is that it's getting a rather loud thunderstorm outside my window right now. It's a bit distracting. Sorry.
Sorry, no. If I can jump in.
Go ahead.
And Jeremy, I'll just be transparent here. I've spoken with quite a few folks, aviators, active duty Wizzos. Spoke literally to the Navy's subject matter expert, Top Gun guy on the ATFLR. He was over at VFA 11. Hope I didn't out him just now, but yeah, exactly. And nobody that I've spoken with has any. That's ATFLR techs, pilots. That's video evidence. That's simulator. That's DCS. Nowhere have I seen this stepped rotation. Right, like.
No, it's pretty smooth. So it is voltage based, and it isn't as like you're saying like a stepper motor. That was something I know we'd discussed before, but no, it's not a stepper. It's the motor is on the entire time, and it's just waiting for a signal, and it's just going based off the input. So kind of like some standard DC motors, how they operate, even though it's not as simple as that. It's kind of in a way also as simple as that, and that way, yeah, it just keeps things smoother. And then of course there is a max voltage, and there is a max speed of which it can rotate, and which it can pitch as well.
Yeah. Can I share, Mick, maybe just one more video I put together, and this is helpful, but from what I've seen going through, and I've had a lot of help with folks looking through this stuff, but all the rotations that I've seen Media player allow. All right, so I believe this is from an F-18. I don't know if it's ATFLR, but you see that, right? It's a continuous rotation.
Yeah.
Let me fast forward. We don't. This is boring, but this is also continuous rotation. You can see it on the diffraction spikes down here, and you have to watch the situational awareness dot. But it does line up. There's no steps anywhere along the way. But here, let me get to some more actual. This is from an F-18. Watch the edges of the screen. Right? There's no steps. And this is actually quite similar to the gimbal video because the SA dot shows you where we are. And you just watch the edges of the video. No steps. No steps at all.
Well, you skipped over FLIR 1 there, and that's actually something I'd like to ask Jeremy about.
This is, I want to be clear, this is not ATFLR, but this is some really violent movement by the pod. Extremely violent.
It's comparable in function.
Okay, awesome. So look at, I mean, this pod is working hard. It is spinning fast. No steps.
Yeah.
And all the test footage, no steps. It's always continuous.
Yeah, no, and that's certainly sounds compelling, and that's partly why I think that it could be something like something Jeremy suggested was that it might be a malfunction. If we're not getting the correct voltage or there's something else wrong with it, I think, Jeremy, you mentioned that it might be some kind of somewhat stepped behavior.
Yeah, and so something else I wanted to, because I know I made a reply to someone saying, try to give a little context to everything, and a little bit of the context is also how the Navy operates. So you're thinking they're on a ship out at sea. All these squadrons, each of those planes doesn't have an ATFLR. So there may only be one or two that are up, like a squad of 4, maybe 2 have them, and it's usually 1. And so there's only going to be a few of them on the ship to where they can swap in and out. And sometimes they have to do like that ship level repair where we got to be up in 10 minutes or something like that. Let's try to, get this thing, working, and it's on a bench. So they're not doing things in the same standard that, of course, a lab environment, and rightfully so. I mean, it's especially in wartime, you need to be able to get something up as fast as possible. So let's say in
100%.
Yeah. So let's say in the lab environment, the EOSU, we always purge it with nitrogen. There's actually a valve in it to where we can hook nitrogen in and actually purge it. And we know that stuff that we would get back from the Navy, like stuff, it wouldn't have that. There's a reason for the nitrogen. It's actually twofold. And it's one, to prevent corrosion on some of the materials inside, but also, like, one of the big ones, especially when you're dealing with optics, is when you're purging with nitrogen, which is going to be dry, then that's going to prevent moisture condensation and freezing on the optics. And so we'd get stuff back and we see stuff like this. And so we're like, well, you didn't do it. But sometimes they don't have the facility or the time to do stuff. So it's just about, they just may not be equipped. But there's also different levels too. So there's the ship level, then there's also a depot level in Jacksonville. And then it's like, if they can't do something, then they send it off to, back to Raytheon.
Right.
So can I dive into the
operational thing? So being operational, it's
So with that in mind, knowing things is like in a clean environment, then that throws in a lot of suspect variables that can happen. Some grime and other stuff, can get thrown in, and some DROs are trying to work, and something's caught up in the teeth, and finally, you see what I mean.
Can I quickly ask a question that if we maybe, Mick, you might have a better shot at this than I with pulling up GoFast, but GoFast is filmed 10 minutes prior to Gimbal. Would there be, if we're going down the malfunction road, there's a lot we need to unpack there, right? Because then you have a malfunctioning FLIR display, the glare. You have a malfunctioning rotation, and you have this massive catastrophic radar failure, Mick. I'm just saying that's pretty ridiculous. And then you have GoFast 10 minutes prior.
Right, yeah, but that's how we get UFOs, is these series of coincidences.
And to me, this looks flawless. In the way it actually, once they steered it onto it, you saw he had to kind of steer a couple. I was like, oh crap, it didn't grab it, but it still grabbed, and that's a pretty tiny target to grab.
Yeah.
You know, as far, I'm not just saying like the physical size of the thing. I'm talking about the actual amount of pixels that are on the screen. That's a pretty tiny object to catch on to.
It does
Mick,
have sufficient contrast with the background.
Are you proposing, Mick, that if it's a malfunction, that within the 10 minutes between GoFast and Gimbal,
I think there are different situations here, because this one, the angle we're looking at is way off to the left. It's between 30 and 50 degrees to the left, whereas Gimbal is pretty much looking straight ahead within, like, was it like 4 to 8 degrees or something like that? Hang on.
Well, it certainly has to rotate.
Yeah, where we see this thing is it's near the singularity, whereas this is nowhere near the singularity. So it could be something that's when it happens, that happens when it's in that particular orientation. But yeah, no, I see that this looks like it's working all right, but I don't think it's doing the same thing as in the Gimbal video. But Jeremy, I wanted to ask you real quick. Like we were talking about FLIR 1.
Can I quickly can we just finish on the malfunctions? Sorry, before we move on.
Okay.
Jeremy, have you ever seen that kind of a malfunction, like what we see, or what Mick's theory is, where it's just kind of like chunk, 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 chunk?
Yes, and that was kind of what I was talking about. Like, let's say that there was something, let's say, from the factory. Like, also, let's say if so the gears, like there's a let's say like in the resolvers, there's the gears that are right next to each other, and there are two of them right next to each other, and they're spring loaded, to prevent lash. And so if that gets off, now there's slop in the gears, and now it's kind of doing like, because now it may be like, okay, well, I'm not seeing anything yet, then it's too much, and it's weights. And so again, there's a lot of variables that can do stuff like that.
Okay.
And one more, Mick, I promise I just want to close this out, because FLIR 1 is a totally different beast, right? Like, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, there's similarities, obviously, but let's get to ask your question and we'll get to that.
Yeah, thank you. And I will go back, since Jeremy has not seen this, and this is what I consider the smoking gun. I'd like to just share this one more time. Is that coming through for you guys?
Yep, it's up now.
Got it now.
Cool. So, Jeremy, long story short, the aircrew very confident that the gimbal object was 6 to 8 miles away, nautical miles away. And when we put that distance into 3D recreations, we get this kind of sorry, I wish I could make this. There we go. You get this kind of J-hook turn. It's a vertical this is a lateral side view of that trajectory. And when you put that trajectory in, again, given by the aviators, you get a match between that third long continuous rotation and that U-turn, that vertical U-turn. So, and there is evidence in the video of the object actually rising up above the clouds. I know.
Yeah, I think
that.
Yeah, I think in your presentation, did it go like about 300 or 400 feet?
Yeah, you got it. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So I can't imagine that the ATFLR pod would malfunction and just happen to start rotating exactly when that 3D trajectory says the object's making that turn. That is just a stunning coincidence that I cannot ascribe to any prosaic explanation.
It's also the same as you expect in my prosaic explanation. It's sure, if you take that particular distance, it doesn't make any sense. But if you take it as being the projection of a distant plane, which we show that like this path actually matches a distant plane if you project it from that forward back to the actual path of the plane taking the video, it does actually make sense that it would turn at that position.
Well, but if you go out to like 15 miles, it doesn't match down to the second like that, right?
Well, no, because that's where things cross over. That's where the lines of sight cross over, which we talked about earlier. And if you took it even further than that, out to 30 miles, then it's just the straight line, like something like a distant plane.
Okay. I'll let you queue up FLIR 1 because I have the same question. I'll go play around with Sitrec and see if I can recreate what you're...
Okay, so FLIR 1 is the excuse me, the Nimitz incident, and there's two things that are interesting in this that are similar. Actually, first of all, like it starts out with glare. So I think this kind of shows that you can actually get glare from a distant object, a hot object. Now, talking about glare real quick, since we're here, like Jeremy, this type of glare where it kind of like obscures what we're seeing. Is this something that you're used to seeing? I know like most of your stuff is in the lab, but like if you look at a hot heat source, will it flare out like this and glare out like this?
No. Okay. So, are you familiar with black bodies?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we used as heat source, and as such, we'd put
it's like a reference
targets
source
in them, and then the targets that we were looking at on there were very like clear and defined. Like, it could be, just a circle, or there'd be series of lines. It's almost looking like at an eye test where you're putting in all these different targets, to look through them. And that's what we would be doing. Like, we'd be measuring stuff like the sharpness. So if stuff was out like this, no.
But you wouldn't,
because we're seeing stuff that's like, we were seeing stuff
look at a hot source.
Yes. So are you talking to calibrate it?
Like a jet. So like when you in your work, like would you point it at the back end of a jet and
so that's what the black body was for. So we'd set it up on a test station through an optical path that was like probably about 30 feet ish. And at the end of that optical path there would be a black body, and that black body they were actually incredibly accurate. I was surprised. Once they were warmed up, like the surface would be nice and uniform and even, and so we'd all calibrate it to where everything be this nice shade of gray. Then we'd put targets in front, which would block out that heat. So the only thing that you would see would be the gaps in the target.
So would the black body be as hot, like 600 degrees C or something like that?
No,
as jet engine. Okay,
no.
So you wouldn't have like super hot things like this. What do you think is going on like here? This is looking at something like a few miles away.
So, I mean, well, for one, I see a lot of pixels.
Yeah, let me zoom out a little bit and then play it. There's only a little bit where it's actually zoomed in enough so you can kind of see this shape. And normally you would see it smoothed out. And I think it's smoothed it a bit here, so it'd be a little bit more like that.
Yeah.
But I like to look at the actual pixels. These are the actual pixels. But you smooth it out.
Yeah. We could leave it at the actual pixels. That's fine.
Yeah.
One thing that I did notice that when it is playing, it's not staying in the same place, and so all those pixels, you would see them, jump up and down, left and right. So to me, that's telling me the sensor itself is working.
Okay.
As intended.
But we're seeing something that looks like
with all that gradient. No, like I said, we weren't really looking at. That's something I don't see. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to have like jet engines in a lab in Raytheon, so we don't get to look at things like that. So the range of which it can cover is a lot. Of course, it could be looking at afterburn, but I mean, this thing is chilled down to minus 66 degrees, the detector.
Yeah.
So it's got a very broad range. So unfortunately, with just the amount of steps of from white to black, it's hard to tell what it's looking at.
Especially now with this low res vis.
I mean, that like right there, that could be like that could only be 20 degrees C, and everything else around it is cold, or that could be 2,000 and things around it are maybe 1,000. It's looking at difference compared to everything else.
Right. But like when we look at this further on, I don't want to dwell too much on the glare because we have limited time. But you look at it further on, it turns into a shape that's more recognizable as. Oh, there we go. Recognizable as some kind of body. Like I think this is actually possibly the actual shape of the object itself, and then there's a bit of a heat source over on the right hand side.
Yeah, maybe it was something that at first you may have been looking. This is my incredibly accurate model of a jet.
No, you should see my model of a jet. It's a flashlight.
Okay. So
that's quite good. Right. Quite good glare actually.
So like at first it could be like if this black side is the engine, then you could be seeing that. Then later on, maybe now you are.
And that's what I think is going on here. Like FLIR 1 starts out with a glare like it's like this, and then the plane goes away. It's a bit more like that, and you can see.
Yeah, but it's like whatever it's doing though, it's actually really spreading out the if you want to call it exhaust. It's being spread out a lot.
Yeah, it's the resolution. So when you say spreading out, I think that's what I would refer to as glare. Like, this light gets spread out here around the flashlight. Is that what you mean by spreading out?
No, I mean like actual spreading out. Like, if you're
gases?
like, let's say you're So let's say if you were to look at like a rocket engine off the shuttle, it's not like a focused cone like like a jet engine and afterburner. It could be like it is spread out, but especially like at higher altitudes, it does spread out more because there's lower pressure.
Can I maybe this will help, Jeremy, and let me know that I've got a bunch of ATFLR screenshots. Mick, if you don't mind, I can share those and see if that aligns with what Jeremy is talking about and has seen.
Yeah. Let's do that, because I've obviously got some issues with your screenshots as well. So, but they're good things to talk about because they do show.
Yeah, that's exactly why I want Jeremy to take a look. Yeah.
Bring them up. Well, I need to get back to FLIR in a bit because we want to discuss the rotation within FLIR, which we mentioned.
Stand by. All right, cool. Jeremy, is that coming through for you guys?
Yep, we see it.
Yep, got it.
Every single one of these is ATFLR. So we're doing an apples to apples comparison here.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is what I did like about the ATFLR was that you could see a lot of definition. Can you go back to the last image?
Yep.
Like right now, I mean, I could see. Okay, I got a Super Hornet, got a looks like a MiG 21.
The Mirage in there.
Yeah, Mirage. That may be a MiG 23 or an F-14 on the very left. There's that's the thing. I can see because there's a lot of definition. I can see what is that, a Su-30 in the top right.
Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt because they're close enough to see them.
But and so now if you look at that tiny image in the very middle.
Yeah.
And you see that white out in there. I mean, that's kind of so like that right there. We're kind of
it's remarkably consistent how, in my opinion, and Jeremy, I get knocked a lot for cherry picking these images because they're from cruise videos, from Navy cruise.
We don't have videos from further away, so I mean, it's understandable that these are the ones you show, but I don't think they show what you claim that they show.
That's fair. Jeremy, multiple other, I think Graves has said this. I think Dave Fouch, another a FLIR tech, not ATFLR, has said that in general, FLIR doesn't pick up an engine exhaust from 30 miles away. Like that'll be attenuated generally in the atmosphere at 20 miles, whatever it is, but it's not 30. Is that? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to see if that is a reasonable point by folks who work on these systems.
I think I'm going to have to, take their word for it. Like if they're seeing the actual footage. So when I was doing this stuff, we didn't get to see like much, if any, actual footage. It was just the stuff in the lab, basically what I was just telling you about.
Yeah. I can pull up a direct quote from Graves, and his direct quote is to think or assume that there's just random glare popping up at 30 miles away shows an inability to understand how our systems work. I'm paraphrasing, but you remember that quote, right?
No, I think he was digging at me there. But I think again, we have examples of things that are further away where we do see larger glare. Not from ATFLR, unfortunately, because we have very little ATFLR footage.
Yeah.
But the Chilean Navy video, as you're familiar with this one, that's not the thing, but. This is what we're thinking about. It's what we're seeing is essentially the plane itself is so far away in this scenario that it's just very, very small. I'm not sure. Is this the newer one where I corrected the actual size?
Yeah, I pulled this from hang on. Okay. I pulled this from your corrected version right there.
Okay, yeah. So this matches what we see in the Chilean case where we've got a distant A340 and it's viewed through a Westcam. A Westcam thermal camera, and we see essentially the exact same size of glare from the engines relative to the size of the engines as we do with the FLIR with Gimbal. And I think it matches. And unfortunately, we don't have the we don't have very much comparable footage other than this one thing. And that footage is between 40 miles and 100 miles. We can actually see the glare at 100 miles away. So saying that atmospheric attenuation would make a glare not show up is just patently wrong.
Here's this coming through. This is a direct to your point, Mick. This is a direct comparison. This is a direct comparison, Mick, to the Chilean video on the left and then ATFLR on the right. Obviously at different distances, but
it's not the same at all. It's completely different.
Different distances. Yeah.
But the one we're looking at, I've overlaid an image, or maybe you did. I did that. I overlaid that image. So it kind of gives a very misleading impression that we should be seeing that. What we actually we get a few pixels of plane, if most. Like the image you're showing is way closer. It's probably something that's 10 miles away or something like that. So obviously you're going to get a much better image. And what we're seeing in my image is a very small part of the screen. So because it's a very small part of the screen, like when a camera's far away, the glare gets large. When a camera gets very close and the camera adjusts, the glare doesn't even exist. You can actually see, like, that's looking at the plane. That's the detail that you're seeing. And because it's far away.
Does infrared energy is it fair to compare the visible spectrum to Mick? You use the flashlight.
There are differences, yeah. There are differences,
but is that a fair comparison? Because I've never heard, when I talk to the folks that I talk to, the experts, when I say infrared glare, they don't know what I'm talking about. They
we see it.
Balloon, but nobody. There's no infrared glare in the academic literature, right?
Right, but we actually see it. We saw it. We just saw it right now. When Jeremy saw it at the start of FLIR.
Yeah. So I get what both of you are saying, and Mick, I think what he's saying is correct. There's no term as to flare because there is kind of like no actual thing, but there is a visual representation of that in those videos. So
yeah, it does happen.
Yeah, so Marik's right saying that that there's no such thing as like an actual flare, so to say. But I mean, in that one video, especially like when you saw the one on the ground and there was like a truck on fire and it's spinning around, so you do see kind of a this flaring effect.
Yeah, that one.
Could that have been a diffraction spike?
Well, all glares are diffraction spikes. They're just various different shapes.
Yeah, and
essentially
how that is being done, actually,
I take that.
Don't really know that.
I understood diffraction spikes to be artifacts of the actual mechanical structure versus...
It varies. Like they can be an artifact of something on the screen itself, or they could be an artifact of like the aperture. So like when you've got your windscreen wiper going on a wet day and you're looking at street lights through it, those streaks you get are diffraction spikes.
Yeah, another good example is if you look at some like Hubble and James Webb pictures with the stars, and you're seeing
definitely
those stars. There could be 4, there could be 8, but that's part of the physical structure in there, and it's an artifact of the physical structure itself.
And that, I think, is what we're seeing at the start of FLIR 1. If I just bring that up again real quick. Like here, we kind of see these diagonals and straight up and down type things. It kind of reminds me somewhat of the those diffraction spikes. And you can tell, I think it is definitely something like that is going on here, some kind of diffraction.
Now, I will say that the optics that are within there is no... supporting structure that is in the way of anything, and so that's why. So that for that one I was talking about, like where that truck was on fire, I don't know what system that was. The ATFLR, like the primary, the secondary, and the other full mirrors that are there, they are just there. I mean, the primary is the biggest one. It's probably about that big. There, let me do that. They're about that big, and then gets. Much smaller, when the secondary flips up, and then there's a tertiary one. So that paddle that'll come up, that'll be like the secondary. And then there's going to be another one that goes in front of that, a smaller circle, but there's no structure holding that. So you're not going to see any cross bracing. And then from the path back into the EOSU, there's nothing either. There's one electronically controlled fold mirror, and then some beam splitters. But all of those, they're suspended, on the outside. Nothing is like crossing over to produce any artifact.
I think with that, you kind of get it from parts of the optical pathway. Essentially, it acts as an aperture because it's passing through some kind of optical pathway. You see this on periscope lenses, like in there's a phone called the Galaxy S20 and S23, S22, and they have these periscope lenses, which means that the lens is far away from the sensor by having a little mirrors and boxes, and that creates this weird kind of diffraction artifacts around it. So I was wondering if like you get essentially an aperture in a camera. In any camera, you've always got some kind of aperture, even if you don't have an actual aperture. It's going to be a round one. And it might be just something that's on the internal optical pathway that's creating. I mean, obviously, we're seeing something is happening here. Like there is some kind of diffraction of some sort, and it seems to be kind of little spiky type things. But it's not like it's obviously not like an astronomical telescope type thing. But something's going on, and I think this looks somewhat similar to the gimbal one. To me as well, you can kind of see almost like a similar type of shape here, little flying saucer shape, and in fact, if you tweak it, adjust the, let's see, I think the contrast, you can kind of get it to look almost more like a flying saucer. It looks a little bit like gimbal, the lower resolution, of course. But yeah, I think, let's see, what time are we? We've got 20 minutes left or so.
Yeah, I'm going to quickly jump in, and I just want to be very clear that both, and Mick, I know you don't put a lot of faith in aircrew recollections, but Commander Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Dietrich both said they observed the object in high definition in the debrief room, in the ready room, and it was the same object that that they observed with their eyeballs.
I've heard that.
And this was also tracked by the ship too, correct?
The Princeton, that's right, and an E2 Hawkeye, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, was this one tracked? This one wasn't. The thing in the video was, I think, only showed up on Underwood's.
Underwood has said that the Princeton vectored them. I'm pretty sure there's a link to the Princeton to this
but
as well.
There's not a lot of discussion about what actually happened with this after he got there. He was vectored somewhere and he saw this and then he lost it. But anyway, we're kind of getting into a little bit of the weedy stuff. Like, let's just go back real quick to.
Quickly before we move on, sorry. And I know I'm going to catch some grief for this, but Mick, I know you do a lot of photo editing and playing around with contrast and brightness. But I do want to share this, if I may, and I forgot the gentleman who did this, but let me just quickly pop this over. This is a screenshot of the actual FLIR 1 video, and then if you adjust the contrast and the sharpness, you get this little guy right over here, and that looks. I know.
Elon Musk car going to space. That's what it is.
Yeah. Mick, go ahead and give me grief, but I mean, this is another example where we in the data. Yeah, okay, sure. There's some contrast to sharpness.
It's not a Tic Tac though, is it?
Okay, fine. Fine. I think it is. It's like a Rorschach test, right? So again, in my opinion, we can find what the air crew described, just like Gimbal. We can find what the air crew describe in the data, and that's not just limited to this. Kevin Day, who's the anti-air warfare coordinator on the Princeton, very, very consistent over all these years. He said they're tracking these objects at 28,000 feet, not on the commercial air routes. And guess what? If you do the math, 5 degrees up, we're at 20,000 feet. You can do the math and find this object at roughly 28,000 feet, tracking at 100 knots south. And we got a paper coming out on that for another AIAA. Hopefully it'll be accepted. But again, it is pretty extraordinary when we can find in the data the high confidence recollections, the specific recollections by the military, the service members, the air crew.
Wasn't the one that Fravor was vectored to? That was like 20,000 feet.
I don't remember. I'm not sure. But
and then when they arrived, it wasn't actually there. So I mean, it's kind of, I don't know.
Well,
It's
I'm talking about
it's a bit above
Underwood
them.
video. I'm talking about the
Yeah,
Underwood video,
it's a
right?
bit above them.
And
Like that's all we
so
can
you
tell.
got,
Yeah,
you've got, right, and
yeah.
you can
Anyway,
find it in the data.
I think we should move on to. We have limited time because I have to be
Yep.
kind of out of here around 6ish. So we were talking about rotation earlier, and the rotation of the gimbal, like talking about whether it, and you showed some examples of smooth rotation. And what I wanted to ask was, am I looking at the right thing here? I'm looking at the right thing. Like in this video, we see two rotations. So let's see, there's one right here.
Oh, hang on. I
don't have the image.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
you got to share.
Yeah,
You got to share your screen.
My bad. I'm just going to make it a bit. I'm going to make it full screen temporarily, just so we can see it in more detail and zoom in a bit.
This is singularity mode, buddy. We know this.
Okay, so there's a rotation there, and then there's another rotation. There, you see this rotation, and you can see kind of like the light kind of rotate like that. So what I'm wondering, Jeremy, like looking at this video here. So let me just play it in real time so we see it. So it's just focus on something. It's off in the distance, not really doing anything. Then everything rotates. We see the whole screen rotate. Bars widen, it reacquires. Then later there's another small rotation, a little bit slower. And what I'm wondering is, like, what do you think is actually happening in this particular scenario, this particular bit of the video?
All right. I hope you're not asking for like what's going on, like what the pilot is seeing.
No, I mean, what's actually going on from a technical perspective? Like, is this like just the camera readjusting because it's going through the singularity? Like we see here, it's it's 3 left here, I think, and a bit further earlier on. It happens around just past 0. It does a rotation.
It's your yaw kicking in.
And then it does another rotation at 3 to 4 degrees. Does that make any kind of sense from what you know about how the system works?
When was this one, by the way?
This was 2004.
Okay. So just FYI, back then, ATFLR was rougher.
Oh, yeah?
It was rougher.
That's interesting, because that's kind of what I've been thinking is that...
Yeah, it was rougher. So it's like, by the time I started working on it, you could almost think it was like... that it was like a different rev of the same product. And
hardware or software or both?
Yes. Yeah. The answer is yes.
So you can't really do a direct comparison. So
so it's hard to really say exactly. I mean, it does sound like what you're saying is that there is a rotation going on. I mean, unfortunately, don't have the context of everything else. Like, all we just see is this, gray background, a target in the middle, and then you see that shift around. So, is it looking downward and then it happened to go over it, and then the like as it's going over it, now the gimbal just like turned around to like keep it in that way? I don't know.
Because it seems like it's rotating the whole the whole EOSU is
now,
rotating, because we see the light rotate.
Do you see that circle at the top?
This here?
Yeah.
Is it like a reflection of something? Have you seen that before?
Well, the point is it's staying there.
Yeah.
Throughout it. So
it doesn't appear in that.
Commander Flavor talking about this.
This is TV. It's in IR mode.
Yeah.
Just IR mode.
This is back when they actually had cameras recording the screen, like an actual camera. It wasn't digital, right? So this.
So that could be someome's freaking coffee drip on the
screen.
Screen.
It could be anything. Yeah.
But it doesn't appear in TV mode. Like when it switches to TV mode, there's nothing. Well, there's one down here.
Down there.
But if it's recording the screen, that wouldn't happen. It would be in the same position.
Yeah.
So I think that's an internal reflection of some sort.
Can we go back to that rotation real quick? And that,
sure.
Based see. on the patent documents, it seems pretty clear to me. I just don't know what that second rotation is. But we're in the singularity zone, and this is where I understand yaw kicks in, right? So we're not gimbal locking, and the pod, the actual EOSU stops rotating, and it resets to the other side of the singularity to pick up the target on the other side. I just don't know what that second rotation is.
It almost makes sense. Like, why is there a second rotation? But it makes sense. But it's interesting that that matches the patent that was described. But like Jeremy just said that like everything's changed since then. well, not everything, but it's improved significantly. So maybe the stuff that's in the patent doesn't directly apply to Gimbal.
Well, no,
because that was 2004.
I've got a video from like 2014 that does the same exact thing, and it has to. It's still. I mean, you have to avoid gimbal lock, right? And that's not going to change.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you don't have like this exact situation like in
let me
the same
ask you,
system.
Like, would the D row ever? I'm perplexed by that second rotation. Would the D row ever reset like that after the whole roll, the whole EOSU rotates?
No, it should be acting like I guess kind of like almost like the actual, ESU, like the whole roll motor itself. It's like, okay, it's got a starting point and it knows like, okay, these are my 0 points, but after that, it's just going to keep going wherever it's needed. So there's not a limit. It's just going to go, once it gets to 360, it's just going to be starting, over again.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Boring people to tears at this point.
Well, yeah, but this is partly for us, not just for the audience.
No, I know.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you doing this, Jeremy.
Well, this is what sucks about this, and this is why I know you guys are getting into more of the minutia, because we unfortunately don't have the context. We don't have the radar data. We don't have the before. We don't have the after, because I very much doubt that after the whole gimbal incident, they'll be like, screw it, let's go home now. No, there's something more happened after that. We have no idea what it was.
Yep. Yeah.
So, just a real quick follow up on like the patent stuff. I think this is something that's brought up a lot: is that the patent appears to describe certain things, or does it or doesn't? Like, do you have any sense about like would a patent from 2004 apply to gimbal in 2014?
Well, I mean, sorry, we see the same exact thing in another video from, I think it was 2013. So the answer is yes, Mick.
I'm not sure what you mean by the same exact thing.
So there's another video, and maybe you didn't see it, but it's another video with a jet in front of the F-18, and it looks exactly like it's in the singularity zone, and it does the same double rotation that we saw.
Is it an ATFLIR system?
It is 100% ATFLR. I can try to dig it up if you guys want to keep chatting among yourselves.
While he's looking that up, if you want to switch back to where you can see me, Mick.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Because I know you want to see my pretty smile. Anyway.
Indeed, yes. That's why I invited you.
So, one thing that watching your video about, so there is a steering mirror inside there, and I don't remember if we talked about it before, but I'm just going to pretend that this is that mirror. So it's not one that's directing the image anywhere. The only steer mirror that is in there's actually two. There's one farther back in the EOSU, but that's just for the laser. The other one is it's there to fold the image, to where it needs to go. But more importantly, the only reason it's actually there besides that is that there are laser diodes from the video and from the IR. And this thing, it only floats a little bit. Like once it's disengaged, it's on 3 poles, and they are energized. When it's off, you'll see it, and it'll actually just float, and it just has it has very little movement. Like it's only like maybe a couple of degrees, and the only reason it's there is those laser diodes. I think we might have talked about it before, but there is at the front, inside the actual gimbal itself, there is what is called a quad detector. I don't remember if we went over this before or not.
I think we talked about like this kind of calibration of the optical
pathway. And so there's a quad detector. Like imagine there's a cross through this. So there's 4 quadrants in there. So those beams from the laser diodes, they're trying to hit directly in the middle of that. And so if it starts, fold mirror is now redirecting that information. That quad detector is that quadrant's taking in more energy to put in the feedback loop to steer that mirror back to where it now gets to center again.
Right.
So that's
Yeah,
the
makes sense.
only reason that full mirror there. I mean, besides it is in the optical path, but that's how they keep things like kind of on bore sight. So
It's
you
like
have
the
the laser going
stabilization, essentially. Like,
yes. So laser is going one way, the image is coming back through the other. So they're sharing the same path. But that reason that mirror is energized in there is to not only get the images to its various sensors, but so the energy from those laser diodes is going to that quad detector to keep everything there. And that was like the big thing that like sold that product to the Navy was that, hey, the engineers can do this. They got a really cool, clever way. And it is a really clever system. And it just helps steer and keep the image really stable. That's what it's there for. And yeah, I mean, you barely see that thing move. I mean, it's like even more of an exaggeration. Even if I'm using this, like it's barely moving at all.
Fraction of a degree.
It's fractions.
So that sounds like, I think, like for my theory to work, it has to be kind of like the yaw mechanism that you're talking about, rather than these extra steering mirrors.
So but it's not there to steer the image. It's there to steer the energy of those laser diodes.
This mirror you were just talking about, but the yaw mechanism does steer the image.
The yaw does, and the yaw is actually inside it's actually the gimbal. So it actually within there, it does actually pivot
is it like
the gimbal,
like
the entire gimbal.
You can kind of see the main mirror when you're looking through the window.
Yeah. So all everything inside the gimbal is affected by the yaw.
Okay.
As that gimbal is inside the ball, the gimbal is in there. There's a yaw motor that is on top or bottom, whichever, and it's steering that part of the gimbal. So there's the main structure of it that's not moving, but there's everything that the optics are held in that moves. That is affected by the. So the mirrors are actually inside this,
and they are doing additional stabilization, essentially using this quad detector.
Yes. So and that quad detector is also still within that part that's moving as well.
Right. So it's they will correct for anything that's an inaccuracy of the three gimbals ahead of that, essentially the yaw, the pitch, and the roll.
Yes, and so that way with the quad detector with the mirrors, since it's moving with the mirrors, that it knows that, hey, if this correction path, from the diodes, if that energy is off, then it's going to steer the whole thing. So it's not just moving the quad detector; it's moving the entire gimbal because it's housed within the gimbal.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's do you know?
Pretty clever.
Are you all involved with like the software? Do you know how the software works, or is that just kind of like a black box to you?
Yeah, that's more outside of my realm. It's like I had more like kind of usability, not in like any of the actual like programming or anything like that.
Do they ever get like software updates that change the way the functionality of it?
No, the time that I was there's nothing that really changed the functionality. I think they were just like kind of enhancements, but from a user perspective. So we would still have like the same stick that the Wizzo would use. We would have one of those, and we could actually steer it around and stuff. But yeah, so from a usability standpoint, there was nothing that changed. Like we saw everything, like anything that was done was probably incremental and kind of more behind the scenes. I think some of the ones that were done were like kind of image enhancement. I told you one of the image things that was done, like you see some people say, like the glow is proof
the
of,
aura.
The aura. The aura is there to help make that image stand out. That's the only reason it's there. The software is doing that.
Is that something you can switch on and off? Does the pilot
I believe it is.
I heard someone say that at some point, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, actually, I know it is because when we were doing like a lot of the testing, we wanted to see, especially when we'd have stuff fully saturated, we would want to have that great separation between like white and black and whatever. So you didn't want a gradient. You wanted that sharpness so you can make sure everything was good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I did find that other video if you want to see it, but no big deal. I know we're on time here, so
no, you can probably do it real quick. I think.
Cool. Is that
one sec?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. That's a good aura. That's a good example of an aura.
Yeah, that's a very good example of it. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's rotation 1 is a pretty violent one, and then you got that second minor one right there.
I'm not really seeing it. What should I be looking at?
I saw a little bit of rotation.
Oh yeah, kind of. I think maybe the resolution isn't coming through very well, but
No, maybe there's a delay. Okay, well, whatever. It's not.
Oh no.
Yeah, either way, I do
that,
see it, but I'd say that's a good example as well. Is that you could actually see the jet pretty well defined in there, but you also see there is quite a bit of a plume from exhaust as well.
Yeah. This though again is still closer in terms of like the magnification, because we're talking about pixel size plane or few pixel size plane in gimbal.
And also with some of that stuff that was being said, like as far as image enhancement and how things are handled, and plus, I mean, the resolution is still relatively small, because what is it, 600 by 600, whatever. It's still pretty small.
640
and so
by
now
640 sensor.
As something that's really far away, and now it's got to try to put that in that resolution and still try to have image enhancement, that could be kind of screwing the image up more than it probably would normally otherwise, because you're having to deal with something like it's, for one, pretty low resolution, plus it's trying to do image enhancement after the fact as well. So it's hard to get the full breadth of things when there's all these freaking factors in place.
Yeah, if only we could like rent a plane and take an ATFLR up there and point it at another plane. And that's never going to happen. TV producers sometimes tell me about their dreams of doing this, but I tell them it'll probably cost you about $1 million.
Can I just maybe recap and close? I mean, I can keep going, but I don't want to waste.
Yeah, we do have to wrap it up, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I
just have a couple quick questions, maybe, Jeremy, for you. So you would defer to other folks who say that IR energy is generally not engine exhaust is generally not visible at 30 miles an hour. Did I understand that correctly?
30 miles distant.
Yeah, 30 miles distant.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Now that's hard to determine, because remember, I'm in a lab, where we only have a 30-foot path and we have like kind of pinhole targets. So
fair point.
Unfortunately, I can't comment on that.
I won't put words in your mouth. And then I just want to get your take. Does this
stream still stay up if you leave, Mick?
I don't
will it like change host in
so.
case Marik still wants to keep going?
I don't know. I could try it.
I mean, if not, we can still talk, like maybe on Discord or Zoom if you want.
Yeah, we can keep going. Yeah. Okay. And sorry, one important question. Do you think for gimbal, that step rotation that we saw, right? It's the step versus the continuous rotation. Do you think, just to be clear, your hunch is, if that is actually the pod rotating, that is the yaw, is that correct? And it's a malfunction?
Oh, I'm not saying it is the yaw. I'm just saying
it's possible.
It could be, it could be various factors. Maybe the yaw did compensate, and now the roll was like, oh crap, now I need to catch up.
Yeah.
So because it was gunked up or whatever.
My problem with that is that there's one part. There's a lot of problems with that, in my opinion, and I promise, Mick, I will stop after this, because you have a lot of malfunctions to account for, Mick. You got the glare, you've got the rotation, you've got the catastrophic radar malfunction, not to mention the match between the rotation. But let me stop this. And then I want to quickly, this is, I think, super important, because Yannick pointed this out. And this would require those internal mechanisms to cover, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Yeah.
It would have to cover 7 fields of view. We did the math on this in
it's like 2 degrees.
0.3 seconds.
It's not like a big movement. It's just 2 degrees.
0.3 seconds, and it's that precise?
Sure. I mean, why not? I mean, it's got this.
I'm asking Jeremy. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, go ahead.
I'm asking Jeremy. Like, that is in less than half of a second, and no image disruption. Like, I don't know how that's possible. this snap right there.
Yeah, that seems, that would be odd.
That's insane. That like
Yeah.
what kind of in mechanical? That's bananas to me. That's impossible.
Yeah.
it
So
though?
I mean,
like,
I guess it's a testament to the system in that it still did its job. Like it kept everything in the middle throughout. You know, whatever may be going on, it
well,
still kept the
Marik's
image right in
suggesting
the
that
middle.
it didn't do it.
I can't see how it could do this. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
I think this is
probably
a
did.
far more. I think this rotation is a far simpler. Unless we're going down the malfunction path, which is just I can't wrap my head around that.
And again, it's like
yaw.
I don't really want to say it's like a malfunction either. In that it I don't know, maybe it was like a little degraded. Maybe that's why you see a little bit of the, you know, the jump. Like they said, maybe there was some gunk. Maybe at some point in the resolver, like the coils that it's trying to pass a voltage through, maybe part of that was dirty. I don't know. And we unfortunately didn't really get to do that, you know, in the lab, you know, track a jet or anything.
Right.
Yeah, I will have to go in a minute. So I can actually just leave this myself, I think, and just leave the two of you up on screen, but you won't be able to control it or anything. You'll just be talking. But let me just finish up my stuff here. Like Jeremy, like something I talked to Marik about at the start was like, how do we move forward from it? How do we resolve these differences and these disagreements? And I think like with you giving input, it's great. But I'm wondering if you know other people as well who might be useful in this conversation. Other people who would come forward, or that you could maybe talk to privately, or who might be willing to also.
That's a great point.
Look at these.
Yeah, that actually is a good one, and put that in. Like if we're going to do some follow up, put that in our chat that we got going as well. So that way we have record of it and we could follow up with that, because I still know plenty of people on that, or I mean, still plenty of people at Raytheon. I don't know if any of them are still on the program, but they're still probably going to have some memory, especially like a lot of the engineers who worked on this as well. So,
yeah, because it'd be great just to get some independent eyes who perhaps it's new to them, who could look at like, you know, there's my theory about the glare, and there's Marik and Yannick's theory about a closer object. And the various objections that we have to each other's theory. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to get people who are interested, because it is a bit, a little bit technical and everything.
Yeah, you know what? I think I do have someone who actually who I worked with at Raytheon who actually works at the depot in Florida. So that's actually that would be really good.
That would be good.
Yeah,
that'd be really good.
Yeah, and maybe you could have a chat to them and see if they're interested in taking a look, and maybe even coming on and having a chat with the bunch of us.
That's a great idea, Mick. Thank you for suggesting that.
Yeah. All right. So I am going to bow out and just leave this running. I'll probably pop back in and see if you're still here in like an hour or so.
I think I'm tapped out, gentlemen.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, I really appreciate this, Mick and Jeremy. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah.
And let's keep the
conversation.
Let's keep the conversation going. And you know, let's just be. I think you know, I try to be humble in my assessments when it comes to like the papers that we've written. Right, we acknowledge your theory, Mick, and we explicitly said we're not experts, and that's why we're doing this, right? So,
the more eyes we have on the issue, I think the quicker we'll come to some kind of, maybe not a resolution, but maybe we could like sort out a few of our technical disagreements. I don't think we're ever going to solve this one unless we get more data, though.
Yeah, and I hope a lot of people that are, you know, following the conversations that have been going on, because actually that one from a few months ago, I got out of that a while ago. I'm like, I ain't dealing with all that's going on. But hopefully more of them see stuff like this, because this is how it's supposed to be. We come together, we talk, we try to, you know, come up with resolution. You'd say, you know, where do we go forward? It's unfortunate, you know, we don't have the greater context of everything. From my assessment, if I'm going to be labeled as, you know, an expert, then my assessment is the stuff is working, and we see something. We just don't know what that thing is.
Right.
And it could be so many things, because especially the time frame, this is 2015. You know, the public, we didn't get to find out about this until maybe a year or two ago. They've been working on NGAD for a while. Do you guys know about that?
Next generation air,
air dominance, which involves a lot of drones as well.
Yeah.
And so there could have been a lot of advanced stuff going on. They're like, hey, let's test it up against our group here, especially with the quad, because it just so happens, I mean, it's just so very coincidental that a lot of stuff is happening around military bases, really. So, you know, it could be a lot of things. I'm not saying it's not aliens, but I'm just being very pragmatic in things.
We definitely can't rule out aliens.
No, you can't rule it out. There's always a chance of something that we don't know. And this is the thing. We just don't know. We know it's a thing, and that's it.
Yeah. And I'm not even joking there. I don't like to rule things out. I don't think it's likely to be aliens, but
unless,
I wouldn't rule it out.
It's until something could be conclusively proven, we have to leave, you know, everything else on the table.
Indeed, very much so, including distant planes. All right, guys.
All right, fellas. Take care.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, you have a good night, fellas.
Bye.